We're live. Here we go. That song, I know I've said it a lot of times, just never gets old. And if y'all want to go and listen to it, go visit The Earth on Fire on whatever streaming platform you can find. He also streams video games, and he's really fun to watch.
Yes,
so
indeed.
And he's very interactive.
Mr. Jeff.
Mr. Jeff. Yep.
Mr. Jeff. Man, the myth, the legend, one of the best music creators we know.
And like 3D graphics and other stuff. He's great.
Yeah, he's a dope dude.
Yep.
He's a dude, she's a dude, because we're all dudes.
We're all dudes.
Except for
those that aren't.
What's that?
I don't know.
What's that movie? He's a dude, she's a dude, he's a dude, because we're all dudes. Oh, what is it? It's like Biodome.
That sounds like Biodome.
Guys, I apologize in advance. I'm losing my voice a little bit tonight.
You're good, man. Yeah, your kids. Kids bring home germs, dude.
I know my kids are little cesspools. And I always tell everybody that I see, you're never going to be sicker until you start having kids.
It's true.
Once you have kids, that's the sickest you'll ever be.
Yeah.
Routinely.
And then it goes around. Like the more people that are in your house, the more it just like
recycles.
Yeah. Why don't you put them outside or put them in quarantine? Do you have a bubble? Do you have a bubble room?
I tried. Annie was like, no. Like they get hungry, thirsty, blah, blah, blah.
You probably don't need a bubble room. Just like one of those, what is it? The sandblasting things with the gloves. You put them inside that thing, and then you could still pet them and feed them and stuff with the gloves, but you wouldn't get all their germs. I feel like
been there, done that.
That's an appropriate way to treat
we tried
human beings, right?
We tried it.
You tried it. The screaming was way too much to deal with.
Yeah, the dog couldn't handle it.
The dog would still be your best friend. Let's be real.
Yeah. Fair.
There was a guy that asked me once, do you think your dog is a better friend to you and loves you more, or your wife? And the guy's like, well, obviously my wife. He goes, all right, try this test then. Lock the dog in your trunk for an hour and then let him out and see if they still like you, and try the same. You figure out which one loves you more.
That's a good one.
Don't do that, guys.
So guys, we're going to start off with the old TILs today. All right.
TIL.
So just getting a little, cozy with testing normal tonight, guys. We're going to start off here. Something basic but interesting. Today I learned that in the early days of crossword puzzles, the game became an object of cultural hysteria. Newspapers and magazines from the 1920s and 30s warned of a crossword craze gripping the country's minds. The trend was described as an epidemic in virulent plague and a national menace. So for anybody that's interested in crossword puzzles, just remember at one point it was considered a virulent plague.
Does it sound like maybe it's the same narrative about everything new? I mean, anything and everything could become something that pulls you away from the IRL moment, right? Like, yeah.
Facebook.
I know that's the thing. It's like Facebook, then it was newspapers. Then you see old pictures of men on the street and they're all reading the newspapers. You see them now, they're all reading the phone. I mean, is there much different? I mean, I guess obviously one could be more addictive. You could make that argument, but
Yeah. Hit me.
yeah,
Hit me with your first. Yeah.
let's do it. I like that one. It made me think. Today I learned in 2009, you're going to like this one. Maybe you read it. I don't think it's on your list. Burger King ran a Whopper sacrifice campaign, which gave a free Whopper, speaking of Facebook, to anyone who deleted 10 friends on Facebook. Facebook suspended the program because Burger King was alerting people, letting them know they'd been dropped for a sandwich.
Whoa. Whoa. That's crazy.
Who would you pick as your 10? You could, if you needed food, just delete me. Like, I'll just put it out there now. Like, I'm not going to be offended. If it popped up and it said Curtis dropped you for a Whopper sandwich, I would laugh. I would think it was great. I'd be proud of you. Yeah, and I don't count.
It'd be sad if somebody's like, I don't have 10 friends. I don't have enough.
It's like Tom on MySpace is like, how many Whoppers do I get?
I don't get any. That's funny.
I dropped all my friends.
All right. Today I learned that less than half of the population can actually smell asparagus pea.
Really?
So some people have a genetic modification to their olfactory senses, right?
Yeah.
So they have a hard time picking up the aromatic scent of asparagus.
Weird.
Just so you know.
That's like, I think it's also a certain population that cilantro tastes like soap. I've heard that.
I've heard that. I've heard that too, actually.
Okay, today I learned that in World War II, speaking of wars, we're going to be talking about that a little bit tonight, British spies plotted to spike Hitler's food with estrogen to make him less aggressive.
And the end goal, ladies and gentlemen, was to give him man boobs, which another term for that is gynecomastia.
Yeah, I guess that was one of yours, but you pasted it after me, so I win.
No, that's fine. That's fair. I like it. So yeah, I think that Hitler, it was interesting though, if they had the ability to spike Hitler's food, why not just kill him? If they had the ability to spike it.
Here's the thing. Maybe they liked him as a leader. They were like, he's made good progress. We have more land now. But they didn't want him.
He needs to chill out.
There was so much killing that was the problem.
That's a good point.
That's
just a good point.
I'm just guessing, and I'm probably extremely wrong.
So guys, we're getting into it tonight. We're just gonna basically do a little bit of the update of the old Ukraine.
I wanted to start off with something, and I didn't tell you this beforehand. I should have. I just saw my notes for it. I had a friend who I was a couple friends in a thread, and the one friend said, "Hey, I don't have a lot of history on this," and I didn't either, to be honest. To keep up on all the history of everything.
To be fair,
is difficult, right? But this, because it's this moment, he asked. He said, "Could you give me just the TLDR, the too long didn't read? This is so much information, so that I can be brought up to speed," which I think is a healthy question, so that you understand kind of the background of this. And I want to read you a couple bullet points he sent. He goes, "I'm going to bullet point this and you can ask me questions." And we asked him a few questions, but his bullet points were really, really good. And I think it was something we didn't cover last week. And it's pretty quick. And I think you'll find this interesting, because he said, it's a little hard to TLDR this because it's a very, very complex issue. It's a convergence of many separate factors all coming together at once. He said, the first bullet point is Ukraine has been in a civil war for the last 8 years, primarily between Eastern Bloc separatists and the ultra-right-wing Ukrainian nationalists. I didn't know this, but they're literally Nazis. They still go by that. They could call themselves that. That's literally what they are. And many Western European countries have embraced the global warming worldview and have shifted towards renewables, shutting down nuclear and coal-fired power plants. And the vacuum of energy needs has been filled with natural gas. Russia is a giant in the oil and natural gas export. Around 25% of the world's natural gas comes from Russia. there's currently only one way for Russia to deliver their oil and natural gas to Europe, through Ukraine. And the Russia state government pays about $2 billion a year, which I wasn't aware of either, just in transmission fees for using their pipeline. Russians have been in the process of building a Nord Stream 2, a pipeline through the Baltic Sea that would connect Russia directly with Europe through Germany. Also kind of interesting. This is why Hunter was paid off. So if people have heard of the going back to Burisma, you can read up on it. Just Google that and read into it. And this was to get into Joe's good graces, so Joe Biden, our current president, to stop the Nord Stream 2 from being built because they were getting paid through what was the transition fees through there. And if the Nord Stream 2 went into place, they would lose some of that income. Ukraine also is literally the breadbasket of Asia. So they provide a lot of what goes to Asia to create literally bread. And very unlikely that larger countries, and we've seen this already, will say or do much of anything militarily in this moment, given their population's dependency on the Ukrainian food production. Because if Russia takes over, they control those exports, then they are now in the bad graces of Russia and they need that food. Ukraine is not a member of NATO. We talked about that last week. And that being said, if something were to happen, like a stray bullet, basically he said tinfoil hat is that some false flag would attack by a desperate Ukrainian on a NATO neighbor, blaming it on Russia, which would be a really bad thing to strike up. And if it all does happen, and we saw that this week, China will most likely move to fully capture the South China Sea. And we saw some announcements of China saying that they're saying training exercises in the South China Sea, but inside of the Taiwanian airspace. Long term, that's a hard word. Russian control and domination requires an allied Ukraine, or at the very least neutral. For Russia, the Western push to have Ukraine join NATO, which is what was going on and why we talked about that last week with Tulsi, saying don't let them join NATO and say they're not going to. So long term, Ukraine being pushed to join NATO, as well as all the military support, is a de facto act of aggression. So that's part of why she was saying that. It's a de facto act of aggression. So that kind of brought me up to speed as to kind of the history, like very high level. But it makes sense. There's all these resources being tied up. And who do you side with? You want your food? You want your oil? We had independency in 2016 for the first time ever. And what's the first thing that happened? Mm-hmm. We went back to having that shut down and dependency on Russia by our current leadership. And that's why that was such a bad idea. So if anyone is like, hey, we don't want to use our own oil, think about this for a second. That's literally what we're warring over right now. So that kind of, I felt like that was a good place to kind of bring us up to speed, because I don't think we went through some of those details last week. But that's
a little bit more details.
That's what I learned this week. Just kind of trying to dig further into it. It was a really good lesson, I felt.
So, I mean, some of that stuff we brushed on, but yeah, definitely there's a few more details that you brought up there. And some of it's opinion based, right, of course.
Yeah,
right?
some of
like
it's...
So much of this is.
Yeah.
But the kind of the... that's a good summary of some of the potential aspects that could be affecting this for sure.
Right.
Yeah. So the kind of some of the developments that's been going on over this past week, basically I wanted to hit on some of those. So it was the talk, the contentious issue was Russia saying we don't want Ukraine to become part of NATO, right? Mm-hmm. And NATO, in particular, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization essentially provides military protection within that alliance. Right.
If you get struck, everyone gets struck. Like,
mm-hmm. Or all of our team will then protect and defend this individual team member. So Russia wasn't happy about Ukraine potentially becoming part of NATO, right? Like Jordan was saying.
Because that would be very bad for them.
Ukraine is really actively pursuing, and you guys are seeing this online, I'm sure, how right now they are advocating for an expedited fast-track membership to the EU.
Yes.
And what's different about the EU from NATO in this situation is the EU essentially wouldn't necessarily provide military support, but it's a significant potential financial support and goods and trade support that would bolster the Ukrainian economy. And because even in the situation currently, Ukraine not being part of the EU, there's barriers to them receiving resources and resources going back and forth right now, technically. So there's still technicalities that create barriers for them being able to get resources to fight this war that they're in. So by activating those membership, instantly all borders are dissolved and you can trade back and forth however you feel necessary. So that's kind of an interesting maneuver from the Ukrainian government that we shall see if they get fast-track membership or not.
Yeah, we'll see. It's the thing that I've been reminded of a lot is there's people that are like, hey, we need to help Ukraine. I haven't heard a lot of people supporting Russia, but I mean, I want to be really clear. There's the vast majority of the Russian people that are in Russia are good people. The vast majority of the Ukrainian people that are in Ukraine, and I think we said this last week, are good people. They're caught in the middle of this. This is their home. This is where it's happening. There are basically children on both sides being pulled in to fight these wars. And if you think about it from like Ukraine's perspective, like they want to protect their home, that's one thing. It still sucks. It's still bad. But imagine having your kids pulled to go fight a war somewhere else for your country. That both the countries don't have a great history.
Well, what's kind of wild about that too is that in Ukraine, right, the refugees and the people evacuating the country, if you're a male between the ages of 16 and 60, you're not allowed out of the country. Right. They will turn you away at the border. Mm-hmm. So it's not even necessarily a choice. Kind of, it's like what's it called? It's not military. Well, it's a militarized, but it's a draft-like situation where you can't leave the border.
Forced enlistment is what it is at this point. Like, and when we see this, we've seen this when we were fighting wars, and it was contentious for us as well. Yeah, it's tough. The sanctions thing is what baffles me, is that's all that we've said or done, as a country. Like supposedly that's all we've done.
I've been hearing some rumors in the background.
Right. So the things I was reading on the sanctions are, and I think I have this on one of them. I'll read. There was a tweet that someone put out. It was talking about that. So the EU head of foreign affairs, Joseph Borrell, he said, we cannot block the reserves of Russia's central bank in Moscow or in China. In the last year, Russia has been placing their reserves in places where we cannot block them. Russia has been preparing for sanctions financially. So they already planned this out, knowing that the first thing that most Western world would try to do is the quote unquote diplomatic way to do things. And that was to basically levy sanctions on them, locking things down. Mm-hmm. And they're not being affected by it. And we see kind of, from a far distance, things that they're doing. Like we're sending troops and stuff to Germany because all these people around the area are kind of getting a little freaked out. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that unrest like this was going on. And this is like the first like crazy invasion that we've seen in a very long time into another country, basically trying to take it. You could argue was like of this scale, at least would have been World War II. And that's gotta be freaky for some of these people who probably, some of them still remember like, what that was like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating. The level of pertaining to sanctions, it's kind of the first time that I've seen in my life this level of sanctions being levied upon an entire nation, to the degree of it. Outside of North Korea, I guess, right? And something also that's kind of the first is this is the first time that we've seen the typical neutral Swiss government join in sanctions. So historically, Switzerland has been very, very neutral. Yeah. We're talking World War II neutral, right? But they have actually put bans on. They've adopted all the sanctions that the European Union imposed on Russia.
Yeah.
So they're freezing assets. They're deviating government officials' travel in and out of Switzerland. They're freezing assets, and they're also taking assets It's a pretty extraordinary situation historically wise. There's not much precedence for Switzerland to be involved in something like this. So that goes to show you that they themselves are pretty concerned about the actions that are taking place within the Russian government as well.
Something I was thinking about today, it was kind of sparked by a guy that was talking about it. Is it a coincidence? He was asking the question, is it a coincidence that this quote unquote war will necessarily, and I'll explain that in a second, lead to the dollar losing its reserve currency status and China subsuming so much more power in Eurasia? And the reason he said this is because currently that's how we get our oil. Well, if we put sanctions on the government that we're getting 25% of energy, natural gas, oil from, what do they use? Like we still want our oil. And so his point is that this either leads to something else, which we even saw it today. The Bitcoin flipped the Russian ruble in currency. And
what do you mean flip?
So it moved up the list in market value.
Oh.
And so it moved up to slot 14 in world currencies, and which is absolutely wild. Like I didn't even track that. Like I didn't even think it would even be close to that, but it flipped it. And that's interesting because that's, Putin was very against cryptocurrencies of any kind, and then has recently changed his mind. It's been rumored that many billionaires in Russia and the Russian government have been hedging a lot of their stuff there so that it couldn't be blocked by anybody. But this guy's point he went on to say was that this could mean that oil gets pegged to the yuan instead of US dollars. And that would be
the Russian oil. Like there's a lot of oil that's not
correct.
Russian.
Yes, or it could just change the oil market. If they're a predominant player.
Maybe.
He's just speculating. He's just saying like that it would be interesting because of the way things are going. Would that be coincidence? He's just asking the question as a kind of a thought exercise. I'm not saying it's going to do that. I'm just saying, that's definitely a plausible outcome from that maybe wasn't thought out. Maybe they're like, oh, well, if we just do sanctions, they're going to listen to us. Historically, we all should know that doesn't usually make Russia listen, but that is indeed what has been said. So, but when you see videos of intercontinental ballistic missiles being driven down Ukraine streets from Russia, it's like, what? Why do you have that there? That's weird. Like, and then I don't know if you saw this. I just want to bring it up. I don't care. I'm not making a point either way. But the Biden administration announced, I think it was today, they said they instruct Americans to socially distance and wear masks in the event of nuclear fallout. Like that was on their government website, like what they said. And I was like, I don't know if in that case, if there's a nuclear fallout.
Yeah, but did you read the bottom of it? They also said, if you're having a hard time breathing, though, don't wear masks.
Yeah, right. I'm just saying
so it's kind of like it's addressing radioactive dust and debris too, right?
Yes. I just think it's funny that they're like, oh, we got to hang on to this over here. If there's nuclear fallout, guys, even Curtis's little sniffles that he's got going on here. I think I talked about this last week. Like we have very few, if you want to talk about test cases that we have very few things for, it's nuclear fallout. We have like around 1,300 cases from Chernobyl. Ironically,
which Russia
just
took control of this week.
Yes. So those are the only cases that we have on what nuclear fallout will do. That's it. And that's good. It's good that we don't have a lot more.
I guess wouldn't they have some though from Hiroshima and
that wasn't nuclear. That was atomic. So there wasn't, we're talking nuclear fallout, not like if a nuclear atomic didn't.
I guess it's radioactive though.
But it's not the same.
Still radioactive.
So the radioactive isotopes that took place in Chernobyl, like the harshest ones they have a half-life of about 2,500 years. I mean, there's people that go tour there now and they come out and have to throw away their shoes. It's still that contaminated.
There's some good documentaries on that.
There is. Yeah.
Okay. So interesting pertaining to sanctions and all this you know, EU support, whatnot, fast tracking. But the interventions that are taking place outside of this is also fascinating. So I love that you brought up, Jordan, Bitcoin.
Right.
I think for the Russian people, this is the best example of how cryptocurrency can protect, to a degree, wealth that is decentralized from a government that could be under siege or attack from other countries, right? And we're seeing a perfect case scenario where Bitcoin could be a substitute for the ruble, and protect your wealth to a degree. Granted, there's still risk.
Yeah, there's
right?
still volatility,
But-
for sure. Although
the level of volatility.
one might argue
less.
there's a lot more volatility potentially with the ruble right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is
And what
fascinating.
a lot of people don't know is in the, you know, I see it in some of the groups that I am in contact with now, is a lot of them when they know that volatility is on the way, is that they swap those tokens out to a US dollar token, and then it gets pegged to the US dollar, which can also be volatile.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, to a USDC or a Tether,
Yeah.
even.
Yeah, there are
That would be
bridges that
fascinating.
people can take their Bitcoin, drop it to Ethereum, take it and drop it to a US dollar token, so it's a stable token, and they could hold it for conceivably forever. But we see
there's
this
other-
we see
I'm
this
sure
in
there's
Canada
other-
too. That's they're both all three countries are a great example of something that needs to be decoupled from a country.
Other areas of support that I think is pretty freaking cool is I think I had posted it. I don't know why it's not on here. I thought I posted it about Elon Musk's Starlink. And
Oh, I did hear
you
about
see
this.
this?
Yeah, he said more going up.
So let me read to you guys this. Maybe I saved it somewhere else. Let me see. Oh, okay. I saved it in another location. So one of the vice presidents was saying, "Hey, we're having internet issues in Ukraine," and then he sent a tweet to Elon Musk, and he said, "Let me read to you." Oh, okay. This is really well written. He said, "Elon Musk, while you try to colonize Mars, Russia tries to occupy Ukraine. While rockets successfully land from space, Russian rockets attack Ukraine's civil people." Ukraine's vice prime minister said this. And then Elon Musk sent a response later that day, and he said, "Starlink service is now active in Ukraine. More terminals en route." So it's like, whoa, how cool is that to have a technology that could be independent of a government and not susceptible
Yeah.
like that. Like, that was really cool.
I will say the one thing that so we saw, you know, the fall of a country essentially with Afghanistan months ago, and what was the first thing that happened was their leader took the exit out, right? He left.
Mm-hmm.
The Ukrainian leader was given that same option, and he said no.
Mm-hmm.
And they even offered to take his family, and he said no. Which, I mean, that's a tough one, but if
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of, I mean, there's tons of evil things that both of these countries have done. There's got to be something said for that he was like, nope, I'm going down with the
And
ship.
to be honest, I would definitely tell my kids, I would take my kids out.
Yeah.
And my wife, because, I mean, they're not actively fighting.
Right.
So let them go, man. Don't let them get risk of getting bombed. But to each their own.
Yeah. I don't, that part was, I was like, oh, that's tough. And for myself, I'd be like, yeah, I'm staying here. But it, like you said, it's hard to make them stay. But maybe it appears, at least from what I've seen, I think Russia was expecting this to be a lot easier than it was. And I think Ukraine's got their back against a wall for sure. They don't stand much of a chance without any help. Russia, I believe, on the global stage, kind of has its back against the wall as well. They either have got to double down and just, this is it, full all in, or they've got to back out. They've got to back down.
So here's what's interesting. Also, there's a lot of unprecedented things that are happening. Germany, for the first time, since World War II has devoted, they just posted, it was like 100, let me see if I can find it. It might be like 100 million or like 100 billion or some crazy amount to mobilizing, and it's kind of scary, and increasing their spending on their military. So since World War II, they've been very like, we're not going to do that, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like a scary
Yeah,
situation.
they put a lot down. I can't remember what the number was, but I was like, whoa, that's a hefty.
It was a significant amount. So Jeremy said, we're going to spend this much money on our military and beefing up our strength, but at the same time, we're also going to send Ukraine, and it was quite a bit. They're going to send Ukraine. Oh, here it is. So this is crazy. Germany said that they're going to kick off and spend $113 billion investing into their military to increase their military strength. And then they're going to also send Ukraine a bunch of weaponry and anti-tank and anti-air supplies. So a lot of moving pieces that are affecting multiple countries here, which is fascinating.
It's scary, for sure.
Mm-hmm. The last thing I wanted to bring up here is kind of cool. We saw Anonymous, the hacking kind of group, say that they were going to attack the Russian government sites.
I didn't see this.
And they did. They shut down the Ministry of Defense website and a couple other ones for undisclosed period of time, basically preventing Russian government from distributing false flag information. And they actually hacked the Russian government, which is pretty wild.
It is wild. I've had people ask me many times, who are they? I'm like, well, I mean, they wouldn't be living up to their name if you knew. Like, but if I was betting, I'd say they're all over the place. They are not just in one location.
But you probably could find them on Discord.
Yeah, probably. They'd probably to give you your home address too. I would say they're probably pretty kind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any other big topics you wanted to hit on?
Just one thing that so January 6th, or not January 6th, whenever the inauguration was, right? You know, we made this whole clown show in our downtown DC. Try to make everything like it was a bigger deal than it was. Gated off everything. Basically, they did it better than our border. And they're trying to they can't use the military, they have to use National Guard. And so they've been calling on National Guard for the State of the Union, which, by the way, something we haven't touched on is essentially our president has not spoken hardly at all. As soon as this broke out, he went on a long holiday, like weekend, and didn't speak about this, which I can't imagine any president, as bad as they are, having done that, like not coming out and just said something about Ukraine, about any wars going on, like that people are like.
No, he said a lot, dude. He's made multiple comments about it.
Anyway, he's getting ready for
maybe not on Fox News.
He's getting ready for he didn't say anything the first day, and then he went for Saturday, Sunday was gone, so he left for 2 days. So he called on it, and Florida turned him down. They rejected it. They said, we're not sending our National Guard to help you at the State of the Union.
For his speech, he asked Florida to give him.
Yeah, I think they call for a certain amount. I don't know if it's a certain distance, but that's how they did it for the inauguration too. It was National Guard from different, because DC doesn't have theirs. They're not a state, right?
What?
And so
I didn't know that.
They asked DeSantis to send National Guard, and he said, no, I'm not sending them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think
is
that
great.
You would have a political game there no matter what.
Yeah. I just think it was great.
You had a Democratic president asking a Republican governor, right? Of course, it's going to look good for him too.
Well,
to say no.
But I think it also goes back to like the contention of how long they kept them there the last time, and he's probably like, I'm not gonna risk our guys going there and being stuck there for months for another puppet show.
It's possible. I think also it was probably a political
Oh, I'm
play
sure.
that
I just think it's great.
benefited him.
Yeah.
Well, I think also there's a high chance that DeSantis is going to be running for president in
Hope so.
2024
Yeah, it'd be 2024.
or 26? 24. Yeah, that'd be 20. I think so.
Yeah.
Not super sure on that, but I think.
He's at least got a backbone and he knows how to communicate.
It's interesting though because he will be competing against Trump, pretty sure.
Yeah.
And those two would
I think if
be interesting competitors.
Trump runs, DeSantis wouldn't. That's my guess. But
yeah, I don't know.
I think they're too much. At first I thought maybe he would be VP, but then they're too much. They're both alphas. Like that was the one.
Right.
That was the one thing that Trump had in Pence. He was definitely a beta or Charlie male, and that's why he liked him. He doesn't need another alpha like bulldog.
I almost think DeSantis would have. I think he would have. I don't know. I think he would have better chances, maybe, but I don't know.
I think so too. Honestly, with the way things have gone so far, I think a tub of ice cream would have a better chance than anyone.
Well,
unless Biden ate it first. So
we shall see. All right. Shower thoughts, guys. Your favorite time of the night. Shower thoughts. All right. How many you got, good sir?
If there's no doubles, I have 4.
I have 3, so I'll let you go first.
Okay. If dinosaurs, I'm watching your face to see if it's one of yours. If dinosaurs ever get recreated, we'll most likely sacrifice someone to find out if they can't see if you're sitting still. Like every dinosaur movie.
Fascinating.
Let's finally test this out.
I mean, I think we could try it out on an animal, but yeah.
No, it doesn't work. You got to send in that Australian sniper guy. For some reason, it's always an Australian. Have you realized that? Like with dinosaurs,
we sacrifice prisoners.
They got that special hat, and
let them go. When you're famous, your managers work for you. When you aren't, you work for your manager.
It's true. That's very true. I don't have a manager, so I don't really know. But I'm sure that's accurate. Water is technically what a rainbow tastes like.
Very
definitely
true.
Not Skittles.
I love that. That's a good one. A child's laughter is beautiful until you can't find the child it's coming from.
It's really creepy. Like, it's like every scary movie.
Right?
I saw a video today that said, this is my new favorite video. And it was, who's the Voldemort? It's him laughing in all the different languages that it's translated to for that movie. And it is really funny. Like, there, and what caught my eye was, like, I wasn't listening to it and it popped up and it said Ukrainian.
No way.
And all the laughs are different for every nation. Like, some of them are similar, obviously. But my goodness, some of them sound like they're about to come around a corner and get you. Like, that's hilarious. Yeah, it is. I'll send it to you. I'll find it somewhere. The people that hate their alarm the most usually choose to hear it multiple times each morning.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe that's why they hate it.
Do you hit snooze?
Yeah. But it doesn't bug me. I just know it's gonna be time. It's like a warning.
I don't usually ever hit snooze because once I hit it, all I can think about is when it's going to go off again.
Oh, I don't care. I know I can fall back asleep really fast. And it has a timer on it. Like, it shows a timer. I'm like, I can do it. It's a goal at that point.
Stresses me out. All right. My last shower thought. You swallow approximately 262 liters of saliva every year.
That's impressive.
But most people probably wouldn't drink it if it was put in a cup or a bottle.
No.
Which is fascinating. Like literally if I spit into a cup and then I think about drinking that, it's gross. But the saliva that's in my mouth, no big deal. It's great.
Yeah. I think it's that same, like, we were talking about this, like, for a video game we're playing. It's like, it's so realistic. Eventually they're going to make it so you have to urinate. Like, you have to stop to urinate in this game. Or you'll just pee yourself and your guy will go through stages of discomfort as it goes from warm to cold. And I feel like that's the same thing as, like, when you spit it out and it gets to room temperature, that makes it gross. If it was like room temperature in your mouth, I bet it'd be really gross feeling.
I don't know, because think about it, when you drink lukewarm water,
but it's also not the same texture.
Viscosity.
Yeah, definitely different viscosity.
All right, you got
if
any
I
more?
drank lukewarm water and it was the same viscosity, that would be gross. Yes, I do have one more. Olive oil is a fruit juice. Real olive oil. I think we talked about that a few weeks ago.
Yeah, right.
If it's real olive oil and not the fake laced stuff, it's a fruit juice.
Yeah, so it's not a legume, an olive. It's not a legume, I guess, right?
Got a pit.
Yeah, checks out.
So, I think like apple juice and olive juice are interchangeable, right?
So that makes guacamole fruit paste.
It's fruit salad.
Or fruit salad. Yeah.
I think.
True.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's fun.
Checks out.
Guys, thank you for logging in and checking us out tonight. We appreciate y'all. Appreciate all your thoughts and input and joining us when the world is changing and we're seeing what's going on and we're testing what's going on in this normal and abnormal world.
And putting up with
with
Curtis's soothing, tiring, losing voice this week.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. So subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, wherever, and you'll get notifications when we're going live, I believe. And we appreciate y'all. We hope you have a fantastic week. Stay safe. Invest in crypto. Buy the dips. Sell the highs.
That's not financial advice. That's not financial advice.
And you will become absurdly wealthy for the rest of your life. So,
and we're canceled.
Do it. Do it. All right, guys. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya. Peace.